President.
Hello, fellow Toastmasters, and I see we have a guest here today. So welcome, Paul.
No.
We'd like to start off our meetings with a Pledge of Allegiance. Does anyone have a flag they can hold up? Christy, you're usually on that. There we go. All right. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Okay. Great. So we're going to have an awesome meeting today. Steve, are you our Toastmaster? Who is our Toastmaster?
I am, yes.
Oh, good. I didn't look at anyone else's positions this week. So without further ado, I will turn things over to our Toastmaster for the day. Please welcome Steve Hendricks.
All right. Thank you, Elise. So, Paul, welcome. You're our guest, and traditionally we like to ask the guests to introduce themselves, and we know you're Neil's guest, but what's your interest in Toastmasters?
Well, I actually went to Toastmasters back in 1968 and I was there for, about a half a year in Scottsdale, Arizona. And my manager suggested that I get there because I'd have to speak in front of customers and whatnot in the business I was in. So I joined Toastmasters, and it was really the first time I had to give a speech. I almost died because I had this blue shirt on, dress shirt, tie. In those days, we wore ties to work. And I had 2 wet rings underneath each armpit because this guy would ring a bell every time I went, and stuttered. And it really, it really freaked me out, that first talk. In fact, I almost gave up the whole show, and the Toastmaster came to me and said, "Everybody does that, don't worry." I used it it was a real boon to me because later on in management and other things, teaching and whatnot, I really was able to utilize a lot of the tricks and emulate a lot of the great speakers we had there. So I talked to Neil about it. Neil and I have both belonged to Ollie, and I'm a lecturer at Ollie. So he said, "Hey, you ought to join this group, Paul." He said, "You guys were really good and that I would enjoy it."
Well, great. We're glad you're here. Thank you.
All right.
And we don't ring bells when people make mistakes. We just, somebody marks them down and you get a report at the end of the meeting. So you don't have to worry about distractions.
That's less intimidating.
Yeah. Not as distracting either.
Yeah.
All right, so we have a couple of roles to fill. Steve Noonan, you're going to be the grammarian, counter, and timer.
Oh, I'm timer too? Okay, yep.
Well, I mean, those are usually combined, right? No, never mind. Rick's the ballot counter and timer. My apologies. You only have one job, Steve.
Okay.
All right. Nicole, do you have a joke for us?
No.
No? Oh, that's funny. Tell us a joke.
I've got one if she doesn't.
Okay, Neil.
Yeah. There's a remake made of Blazing Saddles. Actually, it's not a remake. It's edited a little bit. And this is Hal Brooks' Blazing Saddles. And what they wanted to do is just take out anything that seemed racist at all. So this thing will air this coming Saturday between 8 and 8:07. An entire 7 minutes after they took out all of the racist stuff.
Very good. It took me a minute. Let's see. Timer, ballot counters, Rick. Oh, we're gonna need a topics master. Lynn's not here. Does anybody want to volunteer for table topics?
I can do it.
Elise, awesome. And you are also you're also the general evaluator, right? Okay, so our speakers are Neil and Tony, is that correct?
Yes.
And general evaluators Elise, Christy is going to be an evaluator, and we need a replacement for Russ for evaluations.
I could evaluate myself.
I don't know, man. That sounds kind of weird.
Yeah, I don't know how that would work.
He's got a bias there.
He's got such a nasty attitude, he'd probably really be tough on himself.
Nicole, would you like to evaluate?
Okay, I don't know how it would work. How it works. I mean, what's the
So generally, evaluations are about 1 to 2 minutes long, so slightly longer than a table topic, or is it 2 to 3? Sorry, 1 to 2 is the table topics. 2 to 3 minutes long, so a little bit longer than the table topics. And they generally kind of follow a format of, hi, great job, give them some positive feedback, a couple of things they did well, fit in something that you think they could work on or improve on, and then wrap it up with something again that they did well at the end. And that's mostly how they go. Your first evaluation, you know, it can be as rough or as smooth as you want it to be. It's about getting in there and trying it.
I'll give it a whirl. Why not?
All right. Thank you, Nicole.
All right.
Yeah.
All right. Evaluator is Nicole. Does anybody have a positive mental attitude that they would like to share?
A positive mental attitude.
All right.
We're not all dead yet.
Okay.
Oh,
Yes.
If the boat is small enough, there are enough people on it, then you can keep all the holes filled. That's just a little commentary on our club.
There we go. All right, an educational minute since Brian couldn't make it. I went to training this past weekend, and there was a lot of good information, especially on the changes in the video meeting format and the in-person meetings the way we used to have them. And now they've got a hybrid meeting where it's partially video conferencing and partially people in person. And I just wanted to bring that up because I thought it was really interesting. There's a lot of times when a lot of us would prefer to have in-person meetings, and we haven't been able to do that. We may be able to go back and start doing that now, but with members that we have, like Nicole, who is out of town, you know, we would end up being a hybrid club. So it's something for us to all think about, because what I understood from the training, and I don't know if anybody else that did training, you know, took this particular breakout session, but it was almost like you had to submit to Toastmasters International what kind of a club you were going to be moving forward, whether you were going to be a strictly in-person club, whether you were going to be strictly online, or the hybrid model. So I just wanted to bring that up and little educational minute that, you know, maybe we can all think about and decide. I think I think we don't have any choice. We're going to end up being a hybrid meeting, but I don't know if we actually need to change our charter, if you will, or whatever it takes. But anyway, just something to throw out there for everybody to think about. All right. See, I think we've got everything covered. So with that, I will introduce our table topics master, who is Elise, and we always like our guests to be welcome to join in table topics if they so desire. So Elise, I'll let you take it from here.
Thank you very much, Steve. Okay, before we get started with our table topics, I will get a timers, not a report, outline, instruction. How does the timing go for table topics? He's working on it.
Rick?
Hey, am I the timer? I thought I was the all-counter grammarian.
No,
No,
Steve's
Steve is
not
the
counting.
counter grammarian. You're the
What?
timer and ballot counter.
I'm the timer and ballot counter?
Yes.
Oh, I've been taking all these, I've been marking all your ahs, Steve, so I better reship. Sorry,
Over to Steve.
Mr.
Compare notes.
Mr. and Miss, most welcome guests, welcome Paul. For table topics, you have to speak a minimum of 1 minute. At which point I will put on my screen, my phone, that'll have the green light. At 1.5 minutes, the yellow light will go on. And then at 2 minutes, the red light goes on, and you have 30 seconds to wrap up. You have actually the maximum at 2 minutes and 30 seconds. So minimum 1 minute, maximum 2 minutes and 30 seconds. Thank you.
Wonderful. And again, before we get started, Paul, would you like to participate in a table topic today?
Let me ask you, any table topic, anything under the sun, what's?
So I have a
scope
list of random 1-word or 2-word topics that I will assign to people. So I might choose Neil first, and he'll do it on this one topic, and then the next person for their 1 or 2 minute speech will have another topic, but related. So there's a theme, but they are not all the same topic. And if you don't know anything about that topic, you can kind of be like, trees. There was a forest, and just kind of go off and start talking about something you do know, obviously. So it's just a place to start.
So you actually pick the topic?
I have them picked.
I see. Okay.
Are you interested in participating?
Depends on what the topic is.
No.
I'll give you our next one of our topics in there, and I'll see if you are.
Okay.
Yep. Yeah, that's the normal response. That's what I said. I was like,
Yeah, it's a little difficult, but I think it's the most fun part of the meeting, personally.
Yeah, it's like a mini speech.
It is. It's a little speech, and it's practice on talking about something off the cuff.
Yep.
But I chose our theme today. It is autumn, because I don't know if any of you have noticed, but autumn is in the stores already. I'm seeing shelves of pumpkins and apples and all kinds of pumpkin spice lattes, because each year it's like we bring autumn up a little bit, which is why I think Christmas is earlier every year, because we bring autumn into August, and then we have to bring Halloween up and Thanksgiving up, and then Christmas starts at the beginning of November. But anyway, that's just my opinion. So it is all going to be autumn themed, because it happens to be my favorite season, and I am excited for it. So to get started, who are our speakers today? I was not paying attention, and I don't want to call on them.
Tony and Neil.
Tony and Neil, beautiful. So I won't call on those are one of the first 2 I was going to call on. Glad I asked. All right, let's start with Steve Noonan, because he's next on my screen. Steve, if you could talk about sweaters.
Sweaters.
You're muted, Steve.
Fellow Toastmasters, Paul, welcome to our meeting. Madam Table Topics Master. During this COVID pandemic, when we're quarantined, I have watched a little bit of TV. I normally don't watch TV, but I have been watching it with my friend, and we've been watching this program called Alone. And Alone is about people that are in a contest. They're stranded up by the Great Slave Lake up in the Arctic Circle, and the object is to last in the wilderness all by yourself and outlast all your fellow competitors, and you win $1 million. In this particular program, they're up there at the Arctic Circle at the Great Slave Lake, and it's cold. And of course, they have to bring their gear, and they have sweaters. A lot of these people have sweaters, and while they're in their sweaters, they have to find food. And this is what enthralled me about this particular program, is they're eating bugs, they're eating plants, they're trying to hunt for animals to keep themselves alive. And in essence, it's foraging. And as I mentioned, I'm really interested in this program because it got me interested in foraging. So I had been going out in my backyard and looking at various things. Unfortunately, the only thing I have in my backyard is gravel and junipers, and I don't think you would want to eat either one of those. However, because of that, I am enthralled with foraging, and I actually got a couple of books out of the library on how to forage and what to look for. I'm not making much headway yet, but I'm going to get my sweater and maybe head on up to the mountains and find a book that is going to help me forage in our particular area. The books I have now deal mainly with the East Coast. Sweaters are important if you're going to be foraging, because if you're foraging, that means you're looking for food, and if you're looking for food, you're stranded somewhere. Madam Topics Master, sweaters are very important, and I think they're very important if you're stranded on the lake up in the Arctic Circle. So always have a sweater at hand.
Wow. Wow. Okay.
Wonderful. Thank you very much, Steve. My next victim will be Christy. My boss. Look at that mouth. Get all tight. All right. Your topic is fall leaves.
Before I start, is there a word?
Oh.
Oh, we forgot.
I'm okay if there's no word.
We have a word. I think we
Oh my
dropped that today.
Great. Okay. So my topic is fall leaves.
Yeah.
Yes.
Thank you, Madam Topics Master, fellow Toastmasters, and most welcome guest, Paul. Fall leaves are probably my favorite time of year. I mean, aside from the fact that the days are getting shorter, which I found I don't really like very much, I really love the leaves. I love the colors, and it just, especially up in Tahoe, going for drives up around Tahoe through Nevada City during that time of year. It's one of my favorite things to do, honestly, because I'm finding I used to really love winter, but now I'm really more of a spring girl. So spring and summer. I think Christmas tree recycling really turned me around, because I used to have to manage this program that was 3 weeks in a row, every day being out there recycling trees, no matter what the weather. And it just really burned me out on winter. So fall for me now means Christmas tree recycling is right around the corner. And I've gotten past my post-traumatic stress syndrome a little bit on that now, because I'm no longer in charge of that program. Thank God. Yeah, spring, I enjoy spring and fall. And really it's the leaves in fall that I enjoy the best. Fellow Toastmasters.
Mm-hmm. Alrighty.
It looks like Gina came up with a word of the day for us. Thank you very much, Gina. It is kindred. It is an adjective, and it means of a similar nature or character. I'll come up with a sentence. Many times people say we are kindred spirits, meaning our spirits are of a similar nature or character. So thank you very much, Gina, for that word of the day. We'll give Steve and Christy a credit there because we did not have a word for them to use. They could not have known. All right, my next victim will be Paul. How do you feel talking about pumpkins? Pumpkins.
Pumpkins?
Mm-hmm.
Pumpkins are really a seasonal, almost a seasonal rite of autumn. And I first see them out in the store, and then you see them everywhere being carved out into the likeness of some goblin. The kids love them. I immediately think of pumpkin pie and all the good food around a Thanksgiving dinner. The best thing about pumpkins, though, are the fact that they are so easily grown. We had a pumpkin and we took the seeds out of it as usual. And the problem was the bag of garbage spilled on the way to the trash can. And I guess some of the seeds scattered because the next spring we had a pumpkin patch. And we had more pumpkins than we had to deal with and what to do with. But my son at the time decided that he was going to sell them on a stand. And that was the close of the pumpkin patch. Thank you.
Okay.
Oh, thank you so much, Paul. Great job.
And now I want some pumpkin pie, so.
Right? That was, of course, my immediate thought as well. I was like, pumpkin pie, it's almost time.
Yep.
All right. Okay, my next topic will be assigned to Rick Shue. And it is Halloween, which is my favorite part of fall, personally.
Madam Toastmaster, fellow Toastmasters, most welcome guests, and Madam Topics Master, of course. The other day, my daughter was lamenting, although she agrees with Elise and Christy that fall is her favorite time of year. She was lamenting that we probably will not be having Halloween this year. Now, that's not a given, but she asked me whether we'd be having Halloween, and I said, probably not. How can you socially distance and have all these kids? And when you have people answering the door, are they going to answer the door and hand out candy with a mask and hand sanitizer? Or maybe you just hand out the hand sanitizer packets themselves? Well, that didn't make her very happy because she really does like Halloween, likes to go with her friends and dress up. My favorite, oh look, I'm on green. My favorite costume that she did was she dressed up exactly like the artist Frida Kahlo. I don't know if anyone knows Frida Kahlo. She's a Mexican artist. Had flamboyant, very neat outfits, Mexican style outfits, and a unibrow. And even a mustache. She didn't put the mustache in, but she actually looked just like Frida Kahlo because she has similar features. A lot more pretty, of course, in my opinion. But that being said, we will probably not have the chance to do Halloween this year, which is yet another one of the byproducts of COVID. But for the following year, I'm optimistic we'll be able to resume Halloween. Madam Topics Master.
Wonderful. Thank you very much, Rick. Do we have time for one more? What are we thinking?
Sure.
Yes, I see some nods. All right, we'll go for one more. Great. My final one. Who hasn't seen Steve Hendricks? All right. Steve, your topic is going to be Crisp air.
Crisp air. Sounds like the name of a new cocktail. You know, I think autumn is actually my favorite time of the year. And part of it is because when you wake up in the morning and you walk outside on the first fall day, the air is crisp and it's refreshing, and you know the heat of the summer is going by the wayside, and you're going to be able to wear the sweaters and watch the leaves fall and make pumpkin pies and go to Halloween. I don't know. I think we should keep Halloween. Everybody's going to be wearing a mask anyway, so what's the big deal? You know, it's just like, you know, let it go. I don't know. Crisp air is the signal for the fall season to start, I think, and that's the best indication that summer is over and we're able to move forward and cool down and drink hot spiced rum and all the other fun things about the fall seasons. Madam Topics Master.
Thank you very much, Steve. Yeah, I find it so interesting when I'm like sweating in the grocery store because it's still summer and I see the fall things out. I'm like, something doesn't match here. But great job. Thank you, everyone. I think we all forgot to use the word. But that's okay. We tried. So with that, I am going to pass it back to our Toastmaster is the word I was looking for. Toastmaster, Steve Hendricks.
Thank you, Elise. Good job on table topics. Can we get a timer's report, please? Rick, is everybody on time?
Mr. Toastmaster, everyone was within time, and as Elise pointed out, the people who were supposed to use the word, including myself, did not.
We should just save it for next week.
Yeah, that sounds good.
All right, so
Please pass your vote. Go ahead.
to vote for the person you thought gave the best table topic speech, reply in the chat directly to Rick as a private message to Rick, and just type your vote in there. And now we will move on to the speaking portion of the meeting. So Neil is our first speaker. Neil, do you have a top or a title?
Yes, Mr. Toastmaster, the title would be Language. And I'd like 6 to 8 minutes, if I might, please.
All right, Rick, I'm sure heard that. 6 to 8 minute speech. Please help me welcome Neil Cobb, Language, Neil Cobb.
Toastmasters, very, very special guest. Language. I had talked to you before about my good friend, George Kerr, who was a member of this club many years back. And he talked about his time at Herald's Club as the staff photographer. And in 1960, he was called up to Happy Smith and Harold Smith, and they had a question for him. They said, "We've been told that you speak many languages." He says, "How many languages do you speak?" And he looked him right dead in the eye and he said, 2, just 2. He looked kind of funny at him. He says, "Well, what are the 2? And he said the King's English and Nevadan. Now, I talked to George many times after that, and I liked what he had said, but I wanted my own spin on that. I would be proficient in Nevadan and still working on broken English. And he chimed in and he says, you have a third language too. I said, well, what's that? He said, colorful. He said, every time you speak about something that's irritated you, you have to frame it with an obscenity. Each and every time. We talk about illegal dumpers. We talk about the idiot that did whatever on TV. And the first thing you have to do is frame a word as if it needed it. He says, I've got news for you there, kiddo. He said, that's the same as an a but, a you know, or like, any of these things. It's a fill word that's completely unnecessary. And it's offensive. Of course, I wrote him off.
Right.
Didn't. I kept growing with that. Yes. Any of my projects, they needed flavor. Otherwise, I would never be able to complete them. It just had to. People cut me off on the road. Oh boy, you know what preceded idiot. Yep, they had to be an effing idiot. Not just a plain idiot.
Wow.
I'm out in the backyard when Mary came out to tell me dinner's ready. And about that time, I pulled a sliver in my thumb. And out of my mouth came, and she jumped on me again. Oh boy. He said, you know, that's Hunter Heidrich next door. That's where he learned that word. I hope you're proud of yourself on that. I said, Mary, that was 15, 20 years ago. He says, yeah, I remember it well. Well, one day, Mary's cooking in the kitchen. And she dipped the end of her finger while she's cutting cucumbers.
Oh my gosh.
And she said the same thing as I always said. And I got on her about it. I said, you know, that's not ladylike. He said, look at Neil, it's like this. He says, if you can do it, I can do it. You've already contaminated me. I says, so I can run with it also.
Right.
I felt bad about this. So I decided to take it upon myself to address that word in particular, just like it was an awe, reflecting back to my friend George Kerr. I've been at it 48 days now. I've only had 2 days, 22 days where I was clean. This is ridiculous. It's like a knee jerk. Like I'm walking around with a rubber hammer in my hand, and about the time somebody does something stupid in front of me, I bang my knee, and there goes the reflex and tells what kind of an idiot he is. This is something that really bothers me because I've been very successful working with Toastmasters and addressing the problems with the ahs and the ands and the buts. When I have one of them, and periodically you still do, no matter how long you've been at it, to me it's like coughing up an airball. Now, I've opted to the silent approach on this. I even find myself screwing up the day, didn't make it again, when I think it that strong. So now when I have the letter F that's starting to come up, I snip it right there before I utter it. This has been a problem for a long time. And there's, no matter how old you are, how long you've been around, whether you can address Toastmasters or large groups or whatever and not use obscenities, why in the world do you have to use it in your personal life? Walk out the door and I'm an idiot. No, I'm not an idiot. I have just formed a habit somewhere along the line. I could blame it by, my years being a crap dealer or a bartender or in the operating engineers. The U.S. Navy, 4 years, probably didn't help much either. But I am bound and determined that I am going to eliminate that, and I will be successful. This is the way I operate. I addressed it the same way when I gave up drinking and when I gave up the cigarettes and other things. If you put your mind to it and you really pay attention, you can make improvements in your life. We all have something that we would like to improve on. What's holding you back, Mr. Toastmaster?
Wow. Okay.
Yeah, wow is right, Nicole. Great speech, Neil. Gives us all something to strive for.
You look guilty.
Yeah, more often than I want to admit, for sure. All right, so Tony is going to be our next speaker. If you'd like to address any personal comments to Neil, you can do that in the chat. Just click his name to send him a private message and give him your thoughts on his speech. Tony, what is your speech title?
Actually, I've got it.
Oh, okay, Christy. So, well, then would you like to give him some direction for his speech?
Yes, because I've already asked in the chat what his goals are. So Tony's going to be presenting a story speech to us today with the title of Tony and the Fairly Large Boulder. And his goals are going to be pace, vocal variety, and he's hoping that people will see things in his description.
All right, and the title? Oh,
Tony and the Fairly Large Boulder.
See, I wasn't paying attention. All right, please help me welcome Tony Kenichi. Tony and the Fairly Large Boulder. Tony and the Fairly Large Boulder. Tony Kenichi.
Thank you, fellow Toastmasters. And Paul, can everybody hear me okay?
Yep.
Okay, good. Well, I learned long ago that seemingly small changes can have immense consequences, and that you should think about potential consequences, especially when someone tells you to do something. When I was a boy, my parents built a home in South Hills, which is a neighborhood south of Reno with, at the time, big empty lots and not a lot of homes and fences. We were able to roam the countryside. There were many boulders piled up along with mounds of dirt from clearing lots to build houses. And there was plenty of scrap wood around, and sometimes we would even find metal parts like rebar and large nails. We loved to build little structures by digging, stacking stones, and collecting scrap materials. We called them forts because of all the war movies we were watching at the time and things we were hearing on the news. Vietnam had more or less ended, and we'd seen lots of marching and digging, and we loved reading about castles and forts from earlier centuries and how fast a World War II P-51 could fly after the U.S. Army Air Force started getting the Rolls-Royce engines from England, for example. Very much a kind of a war soldiery family. My father spent years in the National Guard. He was stationed in Seattle and in Los Angeles at times to handle things like the emergency declaration during Kennedy's assassination and during the Watts riots, another emergency declaration he was sent to be a part of, unfortunately. But so we were steeped in military books, and so we were marching around in our neighborhood and pretending to build forts all the time because there was so much digging and stuff to mess with. So our newly built home stood among lines of boulders and piles of dirt and rocks. And these were terrific for us, forts in the tundra conditions of the windy days and forts in the deserts of summer. There was a particular fort that sticks in my mind. In the early summer, several kids, including my older brother and I, were digging for what seemed like hours on the top of a pile of dirt and boulders. At the top of this mound of material rested a fairly large boulder that was shaped like a giant kidney bean. As we continued to dig without much of a plan, we were just digging. Eventually, we uncovered a stack of three rocks that were preventing us from being able to use the space under the fairly large boulder. Like something out of a story, the stack had this largest rock at the bottom, this middle rock, and a little baby rock at the very top. And on top of that was this large, fairly large kidney-shaped boulder. My older brother, who was our leader due to his age and his imagination, told me to work on that stack of rocks while he and others worked on digging in another area. I had found a large nail somewhere, and being a fan of drastic measures, I hit the smallest rock on the top of the stack, using the nail as a hammer. Now, I don't remember being terrified as the fairly large boulder rolled onto my left leg, but I remember being terrified to be trapped there and that it hurt. Fortunately, the right part of the kidney shape was directly above my leg, preventing the full weight of the stone from crushing it. I'd be living a very different life right now. My brother ran home, which was only about 50 yards away, to tell my mother, who called the fire department. There was no 911 in Reno yet. A few people pried the boulder off me, and I got into the newspaper for the first time. Page 14, I think, under fire calls, in what was then called the Reno Evening Gazette. I'm looking at Neil while I mentioned the name of that paper. The two newspapers had not yet joined together at that time, and only a couple of years earlier, actually, the idea of a 911 had been initiated by the federal government through AT&T, and that was starting to propagate throughout the country, but it had not gotten to our area yet. So you would just call the fire department directly to handle something like that. This experience did not take away my fondness for violent, aggressive responses to situations, which is mostly bad. Perhaps it did affect my willingness to trust authority figures. In this case, my brother told me to do something, and I unthinkingly responded, suffering for it. Nobody got in trouble, and I don't blame him for making the rock fall on my leg. But I don't automatically trust anything I'm told at this point. I should have visualized what might happen if I were to knock away that last remaining rock. But I do have an excuse. I was only 6 years old when this happened. Fellow Toastmasters.
All right, Tony, good story. All right, let's get a timer's report. Rick, were both of our speakers on time?
Mr. Toastmaster, both speakers were on time. Neil asked for an extra minute, but he didn't need it because he was at 6:63. And Tony made it at 5 minutes and something. So
Awesome. All right, so please vote for who you thought gave the best speech and send those votes to Rick in the private message. Also, if you want to give Tony any personal feedback, you can do that by replying directly to him. And now we will move on to the evaluation portion of the meeting. This is where Elise is going to take over and introduce the evaluators, and they can evaluate the speeches. So please help me welcome Elise Treywick.
Right. Fellow Toastmasters and most welcome guests, we have two evaluators for our two speeches today. And if I'm not wrong, is Rick evaluating Neil's speech? Or was it Nicole?
Nicole.
Nicole, sorry, Nicole, that's right. Brain blast. So Nicole will be evaluating Neil's speech, and Christy will be evaluating Tony's speech. So just to reiterate, evaluations are 2 to 3 minutes long. You qualify at 2 minutes, and at 3 minutes, you have 30 seconds to wrap it up until you are disqualified for taking too long. With that being said, we will get started with our first evaluator, and that will be Nicole.
Okay. The speech was pretty good. I don't. Well, I like language, so that was, I guess, kind of right up my alley as far as the top. I mean, the title and topic. But so.
Yeah, we should have done this.
Well, I don't. I couldn't find anything wrong with the speech or anything.
Neil's definitely hard to evaluate. He's quite good.
Yeah. I guess that's a good thing, but yeah, there wasn't anything I could find that was like where he went off track or anything or.
Yeah.
Tell us what you enjoyed about it.
Huh?
Tell us what you enjoyed about it.
I guess, you know, it was, it moved, you know, pretty fast, and you know, you didn't have to pause to come up with, you know, like his next line or anything. So his speeches are pretty good, and I'd like to get to that level. I don't know.
We're at 2 minutes, Nicole.
Okay.
Do you want to try to wrap up and give some words of encouragement?
Well, I guess, you know, definitely looking forward to another speech. I'm sure it'll be just as good.
Okay.
All right. Thank you very much, Nicole. Great job.
Thanks.
It's hard to be thrown into a role last minute, but you did a wonderful job. Thank you very much.
Yep.
Next up, I start everything with a big old today. Anyway, next up, our evaluation is going to be Christy Chakarolu evaluating Tony Chinichi. Is it Kinichi or? Two difficult last names to pronounce here.
It's Kanichi. Kanichi.
It's Kanichi.
Yeah.
So it starts with like a K sound, even though it's got the H. And then the one that doesn't have the H sounds like it has the H. Got it. Sorry, I am off topic now. Anyway, let's welcome Christy Chakarolu evaluating Tony Kanichi.
Thank you, Madam General Evaluator, fellow Toastmasters, most welcome guest, Paul, and especially Tony Kenichi. And you're right, Elise, he has the H and we don't use it. And I don't have the H and we need it. Doesn't make any sense at all. Tony, I really enjoyed Tony and the Fairly Large Boulder. First of all, I knew I would enjoy your speech because I always enjoy your speeches. But this especially, this took me back to Reno circa 1980s. I mean, your descriptions were incredible. And it brought me back to my own childhood here in the Reno area in the 1980s. Maybe, you're a little bit older, so maybe it was the 1970s. Either way, your descriptions were wonderful. And it was a super fun and descriptive story. I love the drastic measures that you had to take to get these forts built. And the vocabulary you used really helped to illustrate all of that. It was a lot of fun. So you even used hand gestures, which is really hard to do in Zoom. And they were useful hand gestures to help illustrate the point you were trying to make as far as where the kidney stone was that later fell on your leg. And the fact that you were able to fully illustrate the fact that because of the kidney, because it was shaped in a kidney, you're not walking around with a limp right now, which is wonderful. So I have to say, I think that your speeches are always really excellent. I know this one you are focusing on pace and vocal variety, and I think you did just fine there. I did catch a couple double starts because it's my job to try and pay attention and point out something that will help improve. But honestly, you are a great speaker. I think, as with most things with speaking, it's just practice, practice, practice. And this was a really fun story, very well told, really descriptive, super engaging. I just look forward to hearing the next one. So well done, and thank you, fellow Toastmasters.
Ironically, I did suffer from kidney stones later in life.
Oh, that's, wow. Isn't that interesting?
Damn kidney stones.
Delightful.
Oh, my goodness.
Delightful irony. Is that irony? I don't know. Coincidence. But all right, great job. Timers report. Rick, were both of our timers on, or evaluators on time?
Yes, they were. Both evaluators were on time.
Yeah. All right, great. Thank you very much. Now, as general evaluator, it is my time to summarize how this meeting went, give some feedback. As usual, as I think almost every general evaluator says at one of our meetings, we do a great job filling in spots when they come up. I think we've been doing pretty good at knowing who's going to be here and filling what roles ahead of time, but still having that flexibility for when last minute changes happen. So I just want to thank everybody for having that flexibility, because I think it really helps our club move forward and adapt to any of our situations that we have. I think we're all starting to really kind of get the hang of Zoom more, which is wonderful. I know everyone in companies and personal life and clubs has been having a lot of learning to do with the shift that's going on, but I think a lot of us we've been working on it actively and giving people feedback about how to better use camera angles and microphones and chat windows and all of that. So I think we've done a really good job getting it together and getting everyone on more or less the same page. So good job, everyone. I think we're really handling this well. I'll probably send an email out about, just kind of a president's note, about the hybrid / in-person / virtual meetings, just so that we can make sure everyone's opinions are heard and we come to a conclusion that most, if not all, are pleased with. So keep an eye out for that.
Okay.
With that being said, I think it's now my turn to turn it back to Steve to do the rest of it, I think.
All right, thanks.
Yes.
Good job. Good job on the evaluations, everybody. All right, so now is the wrap-up portion of the meeting. Can we get a grammarian report? Mr. Noonan.
Thank you, Mr. Toastmaster. Today's theme is how to start your talking role. I know as a Toastmaster, you're always starting and stopping and starting and stopping. So one of the biggest things we all do, including me, is when somebody turns it back over to the Toastmasters, you say, all right, let's get going. All right, or so. But everybody was doing that. If you turn, Elise, you're the general evaluator, we all do that. And I know I do it a lot. So what I challenge everybody to do is to try and, when they call on you as the general evaluator or the table topics master, try and focus on thank you and then move on. Don't say, all right, we'll move on, because that's what we all do. And I think it's a big function of Zoom because it has something to do with being in front of the video. With that being said, I'll start with Paul. Paul, thanks for coming to the meeting today. You actually you seem pretty skilled speaker, but you did have your share of ahs. That's your big one.
Yeah.
In the course of speaking, you just slip that in all the time. It's not as if you use it as a connector or anything. It's just ah, da, 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 ah, da, da, da. But we're just pointing that out just because a lot of times people don't realize they say these things. So that's where you were doing that. And of course you had one so. That's the big thing in our group, is you always start off with so. That's what I think.
Yeah.
So guy. And you had one of those, Paul, but glad you came today. Hope you come around again and help us practice. Steve, we already talked about your all rights as the Toastmaster. It's easy to get into that that groove. Same with okay or all right or so. And because, other than that, I thought you did well. You're a very well-paced speaker. I like the way you speak slowly and then you don't interject those things. But as Toastmaster and as someone who has to start and stop a lot, these things come up. So that's what I challenge you to work on next time. Elise, for whatever reason, you had a lot of ahs today. You're getting a lot better, but some days we just aren't focused enough. And so you had a lot of ahs. I caught 6 or 7. You had ums, and you had one big so to start. So here I am. Let's get going. Let's see. Christy, you were pretty clean. You had a bunch of ahs as well, and you had a so to start with, but nothing outlandish. You were pretty good today. Rick Shue, I didn't catch anything from you. But you were pretty polished, so you're getting more polished all the time. I got to pay more attention. Neil, you were very polished. I really enjoyed your speech. It was wonderful. I have that profane problem. I actually have been trying to become cognitive of it and recognize it, so I appreciate you bringing that up. So now I'm even more enthusiastic about pursuing that. The one thing I caught you said in the course of your speech, you were talking about Mary, and you said, I says. I suppose is what you should say. That was just kind of a slangy thing you slipped in there, but otherwise you were super clean. Tony, you again, another wonderful speech. You're very clean as well. The only thing I caught was pretty much a pretty much a thing. So that was a little slangy as well. And that was about it. As far as words, Rick, you had lamenting. That was a nice word. We all need better vocabulary. That's why we have our words. Neil, proficient. And Tony, unthinkingly. Keep a track of those words. Put that in your toolbox. And that is all I have, Mr. Toastmaster, for the Grammarian's counter report.
Thank you very much, Steve. Now let's move over to Rick and get a ballot report.
Thank you, Mr. Toastmaster. Our awards for today are as follows. Best Evaluator, Christy Chekarolu. Nicole, good job doing it. Oh, sorry we threw you in there. One of the things that you may consider when we throw you in next time is just come up with like 2 or 3 things that you like and elaborate on them, and then 1 or 2 things that you think they can work on, and then you will easily make that 2 minutes next time.
Okay.
But good job doing that.
Yep.
All right, for best speaker, very good speeches. Actually, I'm going to go to best table topics, which is the first time as me being a ballot counter that I have ever seen a unanimous vote.
Wow.
Paul Franklin with the pumpkin patch.
Oh,
Our guest. Thank you very much, Paul.
that was cool.
Speaker, 2 great speeches. Best speaker goes to Neil Cobb. And I am going to try to do a 30-day challenge, the 30-day no F-bomb challenge because of that speech. Doubt I'll make it, but I will try.
It'll be easier to get to 100 burpees than it will be to drop no F-bombs in a 30-day span.
Yeah, for sure. Thanks, Rick.
Neil, didn't you work in construction in the Navy?
What's that?
Neil, I think Neil worked in construction in the Navy, so that's 2
No,
steps to try and have a clean mouth.
I was a radioman in the Navy, but I was a journeyman operator out of Union Local 3 here in town.
Very, very good. Paul, thank you for coming. We really enjoyed having you. I'm glad you really did give an excellent table topics, and obviously it was reflected in the vote. So give us your thoughts on what you think about our club and being involved in Toastmasters again.
Well, thank you all for having me. And a lot of the process came back as we went through the day. And because it's been a while, I mean, a long while, 50
Right.
years. I'm 77 right now, so it's been a while. But I enjoyed it, and I really enjoyed Neil's speech, and I guess he's given us all something to work on if we have that hang up. And Neil, thank you for inviting me to the group. You were correct about the people and the fun, and I think it's a process to better, certainly my speaking, and since I like to lecture, and my wife always tells me that I like to lecture, that I need to maybe brush up on my style a little bit.
Mm.
Well, thank you. We'd love to have you as a member if you want to go down that route, and you're always welcome to come back as a guest anytime.
Okay.
Think about that. And
How often do you meet now?
the second and fourth Thursdays of the month.
Aha. Okay.
So just twice a month, and that seems to work pretty well with everybody's schedule. Most of us are fairly busy, so it's makes it easier. But we can get you an application and go that route. Also, the other thing I learned at the training was there are actual virtual ribbons for, because when we're in in-person meetings, we have ribbons we give out for best table topics, best speaker, best evaluator, most improved. And we haven't been able to do that, and I'm not sure how the virtual ribbons work, but I know there's a way that they put together to do that. So we should probably look into that also. Anyway, does anybody have any comments or questions?
Paul, would you like to be on the mailing list for the next meeting?
Yes, absolutely.
Okay.
Thank you.
Can you send get your email address over to Neil and
Neil has it. I think he's copied me because I think I got an email from
Oh, that's true.
Carly Henry.
It's in the email chain. Omega had it sent out.
Yeah.
So, yes, okay. Well, great. Yeah. We will definitely keep in touch and hopefully we move forward together. All right, I will conclude my portion of the table topics. And since we're running a little late, I'll turn it back over to Elise to close out the meeting. Elise.
Thank you very much, our Toastmaster. Wonderful job today. Wonderful job, everyone. We are running a little bit over, so any end comments I'll have, I will add to our media or our email that I'm going to send out shortly. So unless anyone has anything they would like to say before we depart, not seeing any hands. So thank you very much, everyone. I look forward to seeing you all at our next meeting.
All right.
Right?
Thank you.
Take care.
Okay.
Bye.
Take care, everybody.
Ta-da.